Welcome to the Predictive PlayBook. It's a special edition. It seems like we're doing this every Tuesday now with Steve Merril of Wager Talk, one of the best minds out there that you can imagine. And he is going to break down a baseball game, an NBA game. And we're going to start off the show with one of my favorite sports, Bitcoin. And this chart doesn't really do the justice of what I wanted to show it. I'm not sure why it's so dark. But I follow candlesticks. I worked on Wall Street as a chief currency strategist for almost 20 years. And the last half of that had the sports on the side kind of thing going. And there's a lot of correlations, a lot of similarities between sports betting and trading, especially the in-game betting like I do in the NBA that most of you are familiar with. It's the same thing as what we're looking at here. Except this is the price of Bitcoin, but I could create a chart that would show the scoring ups and downs of both teams, and it would look pretty similar. So you're going to have to take my word on this, but yesterday was a engulfing candle. It was a bearish engulfing candle because it finished below the low of Friday, Friday's close and Friday's low, making it even worse, more bearish. And as you can see on the right side of the screen there at the peak, those are Fibonacci retracements, the red lines going across, which we have mentioned with our resident expert, Tony Finn, who knows everything about every word that ends in I. And, of course, he knew the Fibonacci retracements as well. And the 38.2% retracement is the most common in the marketplace, and that gives this the potential signal. And I emphasize potential, and this is only my opinion. And for me being bearish, Steve being bearish, there's 10 other people that are wildly bullish right now, and for the right reasons. So that's what makes a market. So this is just two guys' opinion, but this could go below 45,000 pretty quick. And I'm also not saying that this is going to be the end for Bitcoin. Bitcoin could go down to 44, 43. Who knows? It could go to 32. I'm not saying that it doesn't go back up to 100. All I'm saying right now is the picture is telling me that selling and being short is probably a good thing to do. What do you think of that introduction?
Well, I love it. And anybody watched the NBA tip-off show yesterday on Monday on Wager Talk TV, Joe Ranieri in the intro for some reason throws me under the bus. And I know you're going to go back and watch it, John. So
Absolutely.
Too much for you, but he basically, what got the whole party started was I'd done Sirius Channel 204, Sirius XM 204 with him on Saturday. Rob was on for an hour, and I came on for an hour. And Dogecoin was never mentioned once. And I actually forgot Elon Musk was even on Saturday Night Live. And I want to go back and watch it on the on demand or whatever if I can find it, because I did want to tape. I meant to tape. I used to say, look, I was a huge SNL fan in the 80s and the 90s growing up. Kind of went downhill after that, as I'm sure you agree. But
Yep.
I did want to see Elon Musk because I am an admirer and a follower of Elon Musk, and I think he's a pretty interesting guy to say the least, and also a pretty sharp guy. And so yeah, there's a lot of talk about Dogecoin with him being kind of long it or promoting it over the months. I didn't mention it. I forgot he was even on. Joe starts off NBA tip-off yesterday by saying Merril said Dogecoin was going to plummet after he was on, it was going to rise to the roof, because what happened was he actually slammed it apparently on SNL and said it was a hoax. Then he came out Sunday, and it went down 30-some% instantly, like on the weekend. Then he came back and said that he's launching a SpaceX thing on Sunday named like Doge Rocket, and it's funded by Dogecoin. So I think he's messing with people, as he often does. I've said this all along, John, is that Dogecoin will go to zero. It's just a matter of when, not if, because it has no fundamental value. It was started as a joke. The problem, though, and it's very frustrating for me as an investor and a trader, is that I can't take advantage of something that I'm almost certain is going to happen because it's not a two-way market. The only way you can go short Dogecoin, people say people are shorting it. It's not true. They're selling it. There is no shorting Dogecoin. If you can figure out how to do it, John, let me know. Send me a message. But you have to own it, and I'm not buying in right now and hoping that it goes higher so I can sell it at some point, because that falling knife might start tomorrow morning. But anyway, that's my take on that. Ethereum and Bitcoin, though, are legitimate markets. They're both traded on the CME, the futures markets. Ethereum, by the way, an all-time high again today, John. So it is a little bit detached from Bitcoin. Overall, it's about a 70% correlation long-term. But as you know, the last few weeks, they've been a little bit detached. So I think something funny is going on there as well. And last thing on Bitcoin before I throw it back to you, though, is on that chart. The big news for me was it trades 24/7, but the future markets are off, of course, Saturday and Sunday. So you're seeing gaps on those 2 days off. And I'm just looking at my chart here on the side. After that Friday, April 15th, the original tax day, it closed 62,000. Futures contract opened that Sunday night 57. And it has not gone above 58 at any time since, has not closed above the high 57 range. Interesting enough, it closed this past Friday at 56, or I'm sorry, no, closed at 57 and a half. Instantly opened on Sunday at 58, a little bit above, which is basically an all-time high for the last couple of weeks. And it's come straight down, or not straight down, but it's been down ever since, up and down, but not to that high. So what's your opinion on filling in that gap? It looks to me like it's struggling to do so, and that also could be a very bearish signal, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a saying, another saying for us financial guys at Wager Talk and Sportsmemo, because we're the only ones that are allowed to say catch a falling knife. This is another one. We had last week, whipsaw was the third phrase that we're allowed to say. And this one is all gaps are filled. So you can have a down gap and up gap. The market eventually will fill that gap, and it's either support or resistance. But there are times where those gaps are not filled, and you can see it even on the chart, as dark as it is. You had the gap down, and the market is really struggling. Basically at these prices up to 60,000, the pattern is just highly bearish. That doesn't mean that it's automatically going to go down. It's just like it's not automatically 100% certain that the Lakers are going to whoop on the Knicks tonight either. But these are situations that are very similar to sports betting. It is speculative. We're using leveraged assets, leveraged futures contracts that have a very, very high degree of risk. So you definitely do not want to do this in front of the wife and kids, so to speak. You got to learn big time what these contracts are and how volatile and how dangerous they can be. I've been doing it for longer than I've been doing the sports betting, and I've traded every single commodity contract there has ever been, including oats, orange juice. Actually just did an orange juice trade one time for the sake of the movie Trading Places, just so I could say that I traded it. But a little off the rails there, but I think we need to pay attention to the S&P 500 as well, because that is not. It looks a little ill,
John, will I have more street cred if I tell you there was a hammer candle today?
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah,
in the OJ markets today. Now the problem was it was at the top of like a 2 or 3 week high, so it wasn't the bottom. I like to see them, I think, probably at the bottom, right? And that's kind of the exhausted sellers. But we had a hammer that closed slightly below the open, but it was a hammer nonetheless. Hammer time in the orange juice markets. But now the problem with orange juice for the newbies out there is that it's a very thinly traded market. We're talking about volume of over only just a few hundred contracts a day, whereas Bitcoin is thousands. And another thing about Bitcoin too, and just to put this in perspective, hey, look, it's just like sports betting. Everyone wants us to give out a pick right now. What stock is going to be higher tomorrow? That's what most people want. Just like which team is going to win tonight. And to be honest, we give out picks. We have a 60% chance of winning, a 40% chance of losing a baseball or basketball game. But when you have that kind of edge over several hundred games, you almost are a 99% chance of being a winner. Same thing with commodities and stocks. I don't have a clue where it's going to be tomorrow, and I don't try to guess. I'm looking at the next 5, 10, 15, 20 days, the next 2 or 3 months. I'm kind of a short-term swing trader. Yep. And so we have to be very careful. And we're just talking big picture. John and I are saying we think Bitcoin has more downside reward than more likely it's going to be going down in the near future than up. And look, back in October, I was the biggest bull on earth with Bitcoin. I did a podcast with Rodrigo Godillo of Resolve Asset Management back in December. We had some audio problems in the middle. I think Dave Koken and Joe Ranieri were building a shed in the backyard, so I had to we've had to delay releasing it. It's been about 5 months now, John, but it's a real evergreen video, so we're going to get it up still at some point. The only thing in it that was a little bit time, and this is December 7th, by the way, we both mentioned that we did have a little bit of a side investment in Bitcoin, and he's a totally systematic technical trader. Poker background. Somebody we'll have to get on your show at some point.
Dave?
No, this guy. Right?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
He's Canadian. Yep. Asset. It's a hedge fund guy, and but we both said from a fundamental. The only thing we would kind of give fundamental advice on is we did think there's a lot of great risk reward to Bitcoin, and at the time I've been saying that since it was 10. I think it was about 19 or 20. It reached its all-time high in early December, and then of course it went to 60. So when we do get this release, I'm going to make it very clear to people that we put this out in December initially, that we did do that conversation 300% lower. So you can make some fundamental arguments, and I still think if I had to say a year from now, 5 years from now, I think Bitcoin's probably higher.
I would agree.
The other thing we got to keep in mind that's in the news right now is that there's a lot of talk about regulation, and we knew at some point that was going to come, and that would be kind of what ruins the party. But just to close out here, from a money management perspective, because it is once again all about money management, line value, just like sports betting long term. I look at an average true range. I use several different indicators, but just as a ballpark, Bitcoin over the last several months, including right now even, its average true range is about $4,000 a day. So say it's worth $57,000. That means on average, it's going to be maybe 53 or 61 the next day. So you better be ready for a roller coaster, and you have to take that into consideration. And if you use the CME futures market, you're getting 5 Bitcoins, which means it's 5 contracts. And that means it's a $20,000 swing on just an average day. And what you saw on your chart, these are little bars the last few days, and that's still an average of a $4,000 swing. You saw some big bars on that chart. You can figure out what that math was. Bitcoin can move 10, 12,000 in a day, and if you have the futures contract, that's 50 to 60,000. People don't realize that. They understand when they bet on sports that I'm risking $300, win or lose. Yeah, you better. So look at the charts, look at those candles, look at the 3 or 4 biggest candles, look at the open and close. More importantly, look at the open and close from one day to the next, and know how much you could be up or down in one day, and then multiply that by 3, in my opinion, and make sure you're okay with it still, and that you can sleep at night. Because if you can't, your money management is off. It's that simple.
Yeah, I agree. It's the analogy you just did was, let's say the Yankees are playing at Tampa Bay, which is the game we're going to preview. But if you bet the Yankees, you're penalized for every run that Tampa Bay would win. So it's progressive. So you don't have $300 of risk. You actually, for every
action
run.
Points. They used to call those action points back in the day. Remember those?
Yep. So that is the big thing. I guess that's our message really is, don't just jump in the water, because I can tell you the sharks are abundant, and you really want to study it and the volatility of it. It is dangerous. It can be highly profitable, but it is probably the single most dangerous financial thing you can do. And that's about it. But I will tell you this. UFC went public last week. And I have to be honest. I wouldn't have known it had my son not told me that he was involved in the IPO. And I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty good. Well, that stock today's up like almost 7% in a heavily down market.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that you really want to identify. Now, I'm not saying it's going to go to 40 or 50 or, it might not even get to 32. But it's trading 31 right now in a very, very negative market. And that is a very bullish sign for the UFC.
Yeah,
so,
and it's kind of like DraftKings. I've talked about, I never got involved with the DraftKings stock because I couldn't personally put a valuation on it because you didn't know what their numbers were. They were private. It's the same problem probably with UFC, but we kind of know a little bit more about their history. They've been around a lot longer, obviously, than DraftKings. But I think people are starting to look to diversify as much as possible. And keep in mind, I haven't checked the individual names today because I've been looking at sports, but like Apple, Netflix, Amazon, Facebook, those companies still are so top heavy in the S&P 500. They make up over like 20%. Just the 5 names make up over 20%. The other 495 make up like 80%. It's the ultimate 80-20 rule, which is something else I mentioned. Fibonacci retracements are great, but 80-20 rule is kind of a cousin of that, in my opinion, in life, in business, real estate, whatever you want to look at. And basically that means that 20% make 80% of the money. Sports betting, shoot, John, what would sports betting be? 99-1?
Generously 88-1. 88-12.
You think 12% make money? I'm not even sure 12% make 80%. I don't know.
Just being optimistic.
Yeah, maybe 8% make 92% of the winnings in sports betting. And it's guys like me and John Ryan, by the way, that we're referring to. And commodity markets, financial markets are probably the same. I mean, it's a zero-sum game. Keep in mind, what's great about the financial markets, not only is it 100 times, 1,000 times bigger than the sports betting market, but it's zero-sum, which means there is a winner for every loser. There's a loser for every winner. So if you're having a monster year in commodities or in the stock market, theoretically, it might be 5 people that have lost 20% each of that, but it's been offset somewhere.
Yep.
And that's why I like commodities, because there is a hedge involved there. Some people are actually okay with losing, which is lovely, because I like to win only. So, that's what's great about that too. Stocks go up on average just because of inflation and everything, and we're seeing a lot of inflation now more than ever, in my opinion, coming in the near future. So,
a lot of money
will go up by default. But the S&P took a hit. The Nasdaq, by the way, took a hit last week, and the S&P is now catching, and the Nasdaq is even more tech heavy. So that's another reason, just to get back to UFC. It's a non-tech company. I think people are kind of looking for a way to diversify right now.
And that will do well no matter what the economy does.
Yeah, they were back. Keep in mind, them and NASCAR both were back before anybody else last May.
Yep.
Right now, a year ago, that's all we had to hang our hat on was NASCAR. Started this week a year ago, and the UFC had come back a little bit earlier than that, of course. So, by the way, I've always been a NASCAR fan. I do the NASCAR show on Wager Talk TV. I've always enjoyed UFC. I don't follow it as closely as the other sports, but big respect for those fighters, and I think they're great athletes. Same with the NASCAR drivers. They're two of my favorite athletes. You look at the NBA and the NFL, all the hypocrites in those leagues now. I really like UFC, and I like NASCAR drivers. I think that's why I gravitate towards those sports, but there will always be a soft spot in my heart for decades to come, because those two sports came back when it wasn't popular to do so, and they took the chance. And I think that's why we got NBA and MLB a little bit sooner, is because they were willing to lay it on the line and show that their athletes could compete safely during the COVID shutdown. So
yeah, I agree.
I continue to do well.
I'd throw the PGA Tour in there too.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
As the big three. But you have time to break down the Yankees game for us?
Do a quick hit on both of them.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Yankees here, I'm looking at the line right now. They're at Tampa Bay. Montgomery, a left-hander, is going up against Patino, who I honestly don't know much about. The Yankees are favored. They opened at 125. Favorite. They are now minus 120, minus 117 at Westgate. So tremendous series, tremendous matchup starts tonight in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, this is a fun game to talk about. I actually just did MLB First Pitch on Wager Talk TV. Of course, it's archived on the Wager Talk TV YouTube channel all day. I did it with Dave Koken, who's a veteran, very sharp baseball handicapper, and Drew Martin, who's the daily host. Drew's really sharp also. Drew loves to give out big underdogs. He has a 2-1 underdog as his free play. So if that doesn't get people over there to watch the replay right now, I don't know what will. But this is actually the game I used as my free play on the show. And I mentioned, we don't talk about revenge hardly ever in baseball. It's a 162-game season. Rob Veno and you and Tony Finn and I, we've debated about its use in the NBA, and I said that I don't think these guys come out like mad, hey, I want to beat the guy up, revenge. It's just that you assure a focused spot. And when I have an 82-game NBA season, or more importantly, 162-game baseball season, you want to know when the teams are focused. And then I'll take it another step. When I have a Class A team that's focused, that always catches my attention in any sport. And the Yankees are definitely a Class A team. They started slowly this year. They were the overall favorite to win the AL, third overall to win the World Series. Started very slowly, lost 5 out of 6 in April to Tampa Bay, including getting swept the last 3 times they played them this season at home. And keep in mind, they got eliminated from them in the playoffs last year as well. Now the Yankees are playing better, 7-2 their last 9. Their pitching's been solid all year. Their offense is starting to pick it up a bit. Still inconsistent, but Tampa Bay's been very inconsistent offensively as well. So I know, and it's the first game here of this road trip, so I know it's a focused spot for the Yankees. I like the revenge angle, something I hardly ever use in baseball, by the way. And then you mentioned Patino, 1 outing, no runs allowed in like 2 1/4 innings. So not a lot to go on there. But Montgomery's an interesting guy to talk about. He has a very mediocre 4.4 ERA in 6 outings, but he has a 1.13 WHIP, and I like WHIP a lot. The most overrated thing in all of baseball is 1-loss record, okay? Team 1-loss is pretty overrated too, but pitcher's 1-loss record is completely useless. I don't even look at it. Since I was 10 years old, I learned that. ERA, though, is a good stat. I use it, but WHIP is even better. And what I'd like to look for here a couple months in is when you have a WHIP that's a lot better than the ERA, because, yes, I know it takes out errors and whatnot, but earned runs are kind of fluky, because 1 run here or there can really jack that ERA up. And also,
that's so true.
WHIP is walks and hits, innings pitched, as I know you know, John. It's walks and hits, so it's basically guys on base. And it's a 1.13 is pretty good. So I think Montgomery's flying a little under the radar. I like the revenge spot for the Yankees, and they're only $1.20 favorite, so it's a short price. So just some of the thought process tonight behind that free play on the Yankees.
Yeah, I like the Yankees as well. I was just going to pick something here, but for the sake of time, I guess we'll let's skip right over to the NBA. And we have actually there's several major games tonight on the NBA card that will dictate who makes the playoffs and, more importantly, what seed they're in. Because nobody in their right mind wants to be a 7, 8, 9, 10 seed and have to do the play-in. Because that's just more fatigue when they have to go to the 7-game series. But the Lakers are hosting the Knicks, and if Boston would lose tonight, and Jaylen Brown, unfortunately for them, is out for the season now, and the Knicks win, it would be the first time, I believe, since 2011, was it, that the Knicks were in the playoffs. So it's many, many years that the Knicks have not been in the playoffs. They're going to be in no matter what. But if they clinch tonight, then I think that takes them out of any possibility of being in the play-in. So I'm interested to hear what you think of this game and who you're going to back.
Well, I mean, the other big news, too, is LeBron James was supposed to be back tonight, but now I'm seeing him listed as out. I don't know if you've seen an update on that. I'm not using this game for my clients, so I haven't. It just was too much uncertainty with Anthony Davis day-to-day and LeBron coming back. I kind of scratched it for that reason, but as I look here on Tuesday afternoon, I'm seeing him listed as out for Tuesday's game with that ankle.
Wow, let me check my
now day to day. But what's interesting about that is the Lakers are still a 5.5 point favorite, so that doesn't seem like that means LeBron is out. Would that make sense to you? LeBron is out, Davis is questionable, and they're 5.5 over the Knicks. I don't think that sounds right. So.
No, it definitely doesn't.
Yeah, so we'll have to keep an eye on that injury situation. This is a late game. It's the 10 o'clock Eastern game tonight. It's on NBA TV, so it'll be a great game to watch. I watched a good amount of that Clippers-Knicks game on Sunday. Knicks were down 10-0, and then they're up like 22-19, 23-19, went on a nice run. They won the game outright as a 9-point dog against the other LA team, who I still, and I think you're kind of with me in a bit, John, is, that's my pick to win the West is the LA Clippers. Julius Randle only had 14 points in that game. It was only the third leading scorer. And they still won outright as a 9-point dog. I thought that was a really good sign for the Knicks.
Absolutely.
I don't quite get them as a 5.5-point dog here. And I'll be honest, I'd almost rather see LeBron in the lineup. They went 0-2 with his first 2 games back the other week, remember? Then they came right back out and won outright as a dog without him. So I don't know what's going on with this one, but it's definitely a fascinating game to watch tonight.
LeBron James is downgraded to out.
That's what I saw
for tonight.
I don't get 5.5. I mean, and I don't see the Knicks as having anybody missing. So, Rob and Tony, if you're doing your happy hour later, I'm sure Rob is the ultimate guy with injuries, and he looks at, I believe it was at like the 5 o'clock Eastern report.
5:30.
5:30, yeah. So he's on top of that stuff. So definitely something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, I guess I've talked myself into the Knicks plus 5.5 here, especially with or without LeBron. I like the Knicks in this game. That was a solid performance against the Clippers, and as you said, they still have something to play for here. So. Maybe we're cautious with them after this game if they get the win. But, yeah, they're a good defensive dog. They're going to be dangerous in the playoffs, by the way. They've got the guy who's the second favorite to be the MVP. You've got to have a superstar. They got that with Randall. This is the guy that was shooting in the 20% range from 3. He's hitting like 40 now this season. I mean, he is a different player, and he's good down low, obviously. I still don't picture the Knicks winning the East, but, hey, look, the over-under on this team was 22.5 wins for the season. They got the 23rd win halfway through the year in mid-March. They already cashed that ticket for you. Now, theoretically, it has to go like, of the 72, it had to go like 70 games. So I don't know if theoretically that will win yet unless they play 70, even though they overcashed. But, yeah, that's how much they've overachieved this season. They were considered maybe the first or second worst team in the league based on the season win over-unders.
It's a good story. Well, I had...
By the way, Thibodeau, too. Don't forget about the coach. Another reason that team has turned things around. It's not a fluke.
Yeah, he should be Coach of the Year.
Oh, yeah, I don't see how he's not.
Yep.
That's actually a pretty good barometer, isn't it? Look at how much you beat your season win total by. Be hard not to argue that for the Coach of the Year every year, probably.
I would have to agree.
He doubled his season win total.
Unless you're coaching a juggernaut, and it's hard to be even matching the previous season wins total. Yeah, like I'm thinking of those Bulls seasons, where Jackson just really had no chance to, be Coach of the Year more times than he was. But I have this little gem in honor of Mr. Ranieri because I know he absolutely loves these betting angles, and I'm really glad that he supports them. And he actually, I hear a rumor that he actually does bet them with his own money and not yours, Steve.
Or Rob Veno's.
I mean, it's pretty. I'm humbled. I'm very humbled. So this one is supporting the Lakers, and that's why I put it up, because it would automatically start a discussion on that NBA Wager Talk show.
Yep.
So you're going to bet on winning record favorites of 3.5 to 9.5 points after game number 41, which is the midpoint of a regular season. Our favorites coming off an ATS win, which the Lakers are, and both teams have won 51 to 60% of their games on the season. 52, 24, and 1. 68% last 5 seasons. And bet the Lakers.
Now I know why the line's 5.5 and not lower. You're moving the markets, John Ryan. Your angle today hasn't been released yet on NBA TV. Joe Ranieri, they see this in the studio earlier, so they have it, which means they're definitely the ones moving the market now. We figured it out.
And Bookmaker just went to 6.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, one of the sharper books is 6. I noticed that as well. Good call. And
LeBron's out. How would you feel if you were LeBron? The line is, you're getting tweets from your buddy or texts from your buddies saying, hey, you're out, and the line's they're more favored.
Yeah, I can't imagine that line's not higher if he's in, but I would like the Knicks better, not only because I'm catching a couple more points, but mainly because he is playing. Yeah, I'm with you on that. By the way, I'm not big on the tight fit in the 51 to 60% normally, but one reason I don't mind it with those NBA systems I've said on the show is because that's basically, it's a winning team, but not a dominant Class A
right.
team. So basically,
exactly right.
It's a creative way of saying a Class B team, and I do put my teams in classes like A through D in the NBA. Like a D team off a win, I always look to fade. A Class A off a loss, I always look to play. And these are two teams that are good enough to be playoff teams, winning teams, but not consistent. So what you're saying is that home team is showing maybe a little bit of momentum. So I think it makes sense. I think that angle checks all the boxes for making sense. Of course, hard to apply tonight, as I know because LeBron's not there, and the Lakers are technically probably an A team if everyone plays, although they're probably not playing to that level even with them tonight. So it's just tough. But yeah, I think long term that's a good one to bookmark for people and to use other times as well, though.
Yeah, and it's I'm going to do this actually for Joe's purpose. I'm going to put together a betting angle that's going to emphasize the losing percentage, so that I'm going to reverse it. So this betting angle has produced 32% losers at a 24 and 52 clip, and try to make it sound positive. That the point is that you can say, wow, this really supports the Lakers big time. Historically, it does. But it also implies that you have a 32% chance historically of losing with this betting angle. So this could easily be part of that 32%.
Right, and often maybe a team was without a key player or something in those. So that's why nothing's 100%. And that's why it's a filter. It's one of many filters we use in handicapping game. By the way, before we finish, we talked about this game. We talked about all 6 games yesterday on the NBA show. Otherwise, I don't think this would have made the cut. But Indiana-Cleveland was one of the games we covered. Cleveland had lost, I believe, 10 in a row straight up in ATS and 1 in 13 straight up in ATS their last 14. By the way, closed 9 at Bookmaker, but it was 9.5 everywhere else during the day and pretty much closed 9.5, but they lose by exactly 9. So technically they got the half-point cover. But I thought of you instantly, and I thought of Joe Ranieri instantly. I mean, it just... You barely caught that falling knife. Right before it hit the ground, you caught that falling knife. But I'm not sure that's the buy time for the Cavaliers.
When you do that, you're just happy that you didn't cut your hand catching it.
You just lost one digit on your hand. You didn't lose all 5 fingers, right? You lost the tip of your pinky, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, with stuff like Bitcoin, though, you can lose the whole hand pretty quick.
Or you lose the house.
Yeah, and that's way before it even gets to the ground.
I mean, just put that in perspective. Once again, one Bitcoin... And it's just choppy, small little bars right now. That's an average of, you can expect to go up or down 4,000 a day. And that's not the extreme moves. And now you get to the future markets, which is a whole other ballgame as you and I play in, is that that's a $20,000 daily move with 5 contracts. But 4,000 for a lot of people is a half a salary a month, a full salary a month, and that's one day in Bitcoin. So once again, you out there making 30 or 40 grand a year, nothing wrong with that. Just put it in perspective if you're playing Bitcoin, that you're risking 1 month's salary. If you make 100 grand a month, good for you. You're risking about a week and a half salary on one day of trading Bitcoin if it goes the wrong way. So just be okay if you're okay risking 5 straight days of work, 40 hours of work on one Bitcoin day. Just trying to put it in perspective for people.
Exactly.
You get great information today, but I want them to understand the market they're getting into and the volatility before they do so.
Yeah, it's shark infested, and there is no pity party. If you're on the wrong end.
Like I said earlier, John, this doesn't scare people. There's a winner for every loser. There's a buyer for every seller. It's the old poker adage. We'll leave it on this. The poker adage, what is if you're at the And Rodrigo Gordillo, who did the show with me from Resolve Asset Management, Rodrigo was a pro poker player, paid his way through college, basically, sharp guy. And he said it too when we were doing the show. It's one of my favorite sayings in all of life, sports, anything is, if you're at the poker table, what is it for the first 10, 15 minutes? If you don't know who the sucker is, you're the sucker.
It's you.
So just keep in mind, there's a lot of...
Well said.
I always assume anything I do in life that I'm not the sharpest guy in the room, whether it's a real estate transaction, a financial trade, a sports bet even. And that's why when the lines move, like this Knick game tonight, 5.5 looks high to me, but like you said, the sharp book is at 6. I don't feel like I don't think the sharps are sharper than me or you, but I don't think they're dumber either. And sometimes they see things we don't see. That's why I love doing shows with you, Rob Veno, Tony Finn, all the guys at wagertalk.com, sportsmemo.com, because we're all sharp in different ways, and we value each other's opinions. And just know what you're getting into if you're doing Bitcoin or any of these futures contracts.
I'll be sure to tell Tony in the beginning of the show that Steve Merril said that you are sharp.
Tony, hey, Tony is sharp.
Yeah.
And it talk diversification, the sharp diversification ratio that I'm talking about. Tony Finn, he plays his part on that team in a lot of different ways.
No doubt.
Was he able to get on your show yesterday? Because he wasn't able to do the baseball show or show Saturday with the mic issues. So.
No, we had Joe D'Amico and his endless energy. And then Rob and I just took it the rest of the way.
Well, Finn might be 50-50 again, because that's 3 days now that he has not gotten the mic working on the new setup. So he's a game-time decision.
I mean, Tony, if you can hear me, make sure it's plugged in.
It's been plugged in for 3 days.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully he gets it fixed. It's not the same show without him on it,
Tell the guys, maybe I'll try to swing in Friday again. Tell the guys, whoever you have tonight, I said hi as always.
Absolutely. Yep. So to recap the show, we're short Bitcoin on a very short-term basis with a huge amount of risk. And we like the Yankees, and we're kind of waiting, sitting on the fence here. I think Lakers or Knicks. And it might be just a game just to watch. I do think, though, if the market does not go down, Steve, I'm going to put a 2 or 3 pizza money amount on the Lakers, because the fact that it's not going down is telling me something to bet the Lakers, because the spread's not going down.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's 5.5 across the board, 6 at a sharp book, and you've got some technical support as well. So
yep.
I definitely don't. I'm not jumping on the Knicks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm not either. Yeah, there's no sprinkle of the money line with the Knicks tonight. And, if they end up winning by 10, then congratulations.
Yep.
But anyway, thanks for being on the show, Steve. I really appreciate these quick-hitting segments. We always get into a good conversation about the markets. And I knew yesterday that I was going to have that chart ready for you. And
awesome.
We'll have to see how this pans out the next couple of days. But, hold on, to get a hard hat just in case. And we'll see how this plays out the rest of the week. So for Steve, myself, the Predictive PlayBook, Sportsmemo, wagertalk.com, may all the wins be yours.